Hi, this is the 15th kind of problem that you might see. Just saying, in my opinion, this may be the hardest. So if this looks complicated to you, at least you can know that this might be the hardest thing for math that you'll have to do. But but the truth is, it's actually not super hard, and you may have learned this in pre-calculus if you took it. So these are called Pythagorean identities. They're basically what they are kind of just like formulas that have to do with trigonometry. So you may, hopefully you've taken geometry and you remember these guys, sin, cos, tan, sine, cosine, tangent. And we're going to talk about the SOHCAHTOA. Maybe I should have done that video first, but anyways, because that's simpler. But there's things that are pretty much reverse. I'm not going to get all technical, but the reverse things are, this is called cosecant, secant, cotangent. They're basically just flipped. So if you know how sine is O over H, well, this is just H over O, so it's whole. And then that would mean this is ha, and this is ow, because this is oa and ah. O, ah, oa, ho, ha, ow. So they're like reversed. And so these things just use all 6 of those different things, and they're just things that are basically true. So here are the Pythagorean identities right here. There are 3 that unfortunately it would be in your best interest to know, but here's what I have to say about this. It's rare, so it's not a very high chance that you'll see a question about this, but you could. So if you're one of those people trying to really go for the 36, then I would remember these. But if you're someone that's already struggling with the more simpler things, then you may want to just turn off this video because it might not be beneficial to you because it's not that common. But anyways, cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x equals 1. That is something that's true. Can't forget the squareds, though. Also, 1 plus tangent squared of x equals the secant squared of x. Also, 1 plus the cotangent squared of x is the cosecant squared of x. And these are actually, they are 3 different things, but they're really the same because you can just change these based on the relationships between them. But I'm not going to get into that because that's pre-calculus. But if you would like more explanation of this, I'll try to remember to put a video in the description or comments of me talking about it fully. So we have 3 problems that we're going to do. And there's also these things. These are not Pythagorean identities, but they're just things that are true. The tangent of an angle is the same as the sine divided by the cosine, and the cotangent is the same as the cosine divided by the sine. Well, that kind of makes sense because the tangent is the same as cotangent, or 1 divided by the cotangent. So that's why these things flip. That kind of makes sense. So let's look at this first one here. Let me just do orange. All right, sine squared of 7x plus cosine squared of 7x. So you might be confused. You might be like, what? How do you do this? Well, it's actually just 1. Just because those 7s are there doesn't mean anything. It could be 8. It could be 849. It could be anything. Still 1 because of this thing, this Pythagorean identity. Now, you might notice that it's sine and cosine, and here it says cosine sine. It doesn't matter the order. That's commutative property. Now, they're not always going to be as simple as that, although this was question number 46 on one of the 2023 practice exams. So it could be that simple. And that looks complicated from a unknown person, but I'm just saying, if you ever see something like this, just know that the answer is 1. These things that I'm about to show you, I am not even sure if there would be a question like this or if there ever has been, because this is complicated, but this is just showing you how to do it. So these are 2 separate things. Let's look at this top one right here. So this might look crazy. And it is kind of crazy, but the answer is not going to be. So we just have to use our identities and things like this that I already told you that how they're reversed to each other and stuff like that. But first we have to factor. You can actually factor trigonometry things if you didn't know. So let's just replace these with letters like x and y that seem simpler. Let's just call the cosines x, and we'll call this y. We'll just do that for now. So that changes it to now something that looks a lot simpler. X cubed plus y squared times x. Well, that seems easy to factor, hopefully. You can just divide out an x because there's an x in both. So it would actually be x, and then that would end up being this. All right, simple enough. Well, we just do the same thing here. So that would be cosine of x. I did not give myself enough room right here. So how about I'll just write it right here. Okay, so cosine of x, I'll just do this to be simpler. I don't need to do parentheses right now. And then we have cosine squared x plus sine squared x divided by cotangent x. Oh, well, our Pythagorean identity says that this is just 1. That's what I'm talking about. It's a lot simpler than it seems. So that makes it just this. Times 1, we don't even have to put anything else there. So now it's just this. Well, we're not really done. We can leave this the same, but we see right here, cotangent of an angle is cosine divided by sine. And you don't really have to memorize this one. You could just know this one and then know that it flips for cotangent. So SC, now it's CS. So sine, cosine. And now it's just like a typical fraction thing. We multiply by the reciprocal. Oh, that's not the reciprocal. Well, that is cosine squared x divided by sine of x. That is the answer. Well, yeah, it is. So I don't know if you could see something that complicated, but if you did, that's what you would do. Here, here's another kind. So we can use our Pythagorean identities once again. This time we can use this second one. So it would equal secant squared x right here. We just replace it with that. Now this one, you might not realize that this is a Pythagorean identity, but it's just rearranged. So if it's switched in terms of this, of course that's green and you can't see. If it's switched in terms of this, well, you would just subtract the sine squared x. So it would be 1 minus sine squared x. Oh, that makes sense. So it's just really cosine squared x. So you multiply these. Well, secant squared x, that's really 1 over cosine squared x. So then this is cosine squared x over 1. Oh, cancels out, cancels out. The answer is 1. So a lot of times these things end up with simple answers, but you just need to know how to use these, and they can rearrange. So once again, this is probably the hardest math thing that you would see. So, but if you can figure this out, then you should be good as long as you know all the other things. So there you go.